What's up, guys? Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Naia Lax Updates. How are we doing today, Tucker?
Man, we are doing swell. We just sadly, as we were discussing, saw the Buffalo Bills, America's football team, I guess we should say, get taken down by old Patty Mahomes and Kansas City. So it's a sad one there. We've both now agreed that we are on the Bengals train.
Joey
Go Bengals. Yep. Go Joey. Go Bengals. So that's where we're at football wise. There's a lot of snow here in Dubuque, Iowa, but lacrosse has started, and lacrosse has started other places, which we should address here shortly as well. But life is good. You turned another year older today, so happy birthday it up. Full disclosure, guys, John was over here saying he's an old man. He's still in his 20s, so not quite an old man yet, but happy birthday to you.
27, approaching 30 slowly. So let's make sure keyword slowly on that one.
No rush at all. We'll just keep it going slow. I like that.
Yeah, I guess the first topic I wanted to dive right into was kind of the bad news, I guess, for the weekend. And it seems like we're gonna go 0 for 3 on our first year programs starting up here. So not ideal to say the least. I mean, of the three, Thomas More seems like they're in the best place. I know you have a little bit more to come later. You spoke with their coach this week. It sounds like a good place, just probably going to start up next year, which was kind of to be expected. We looked at Multnoma's roster, 8, not enough, obviously. And then Westcliff was the one we were really excited for. We're monitoring their roster. I think I saw last time I checked 24, 25 guys. So I was like, all right, surely they'll be competing, having a decent first year. Like, that's a lot of guys for 1 year, especially
huge.
It wasn't like they said they were going to have a team, waited a year of recruiting and then built that team. Like, that was instant recruits on campus. And then it hasn't been officially announced, but I've heard from several credible sources that they're not having a first season. And it looks like a lot of the guys are getting out of their scholarships to go elsewhere. So
yeah, we started this out 6 weeks ago, really hopeful for some new NAI lacrosse in very uncharted areas. And sadly, we're not going to see that happen. I think the uncharted being California and Oregon, especially, which is it's a little bit disappointing and a little sad. I guess there's some good tidbits of information to take away from this and kind of use it as a case study. I mean, I guess the two kind of status updates that I have, number one, Multnomah, I guess we don't really know that they're not having a season, but they only have 8 guys on the roster. It's a really curious thing because they were putting out like quite a bit of promotional material on lacrosse being launched this year. We were talking about jerseys, their social media was popping off. Like, there were a lot of signs of a healthy, thriving first year program, but the roster's not reflecting that right now as the season's supposed to be starting. And so we have to assume that they're not playing this year just based off of that. I would love to be shocked and like wake up one morning and be like, oh, Multnomah played. Like, that's sick. Awesome. But I guess right now we're just in that like weird gray area where we have really no idea what's going on, but we do have to come to the conclusion as of right now that we don't think they're having a season. Westcliff, that's just sad all around. I was really excited for some California NAI lacrosse. I was really excited. And I'll jump into that in a second. We can talk about that. And then the third, Thomas More, positives all around there. They're not playing a season this year, from what I understand. Had a great conversation with Coach Sean over there. Really, respect his desire to inform us on what's going on, and had a great conversation about Ohio lacrosse. Big shout out to him and what he's doing at Thomas More. We also found out that he has a background and a coaching history with good old Pete Campbell at Cumberland's. They coached against each other for quite a bit of time in the Ohio high school lacrosse scene. So that was really, really cool to hear. That was like the nugget of information that I thought was just awesome, that they have a background coaching each other. They again, from my understanding, are not playing a season this year. They're building for next season. They were kind of one of those teams that we didn't really have a start date on or know too much about. I can tell you from talking with Sean that they have quite a good number of recruits coming in, some very good recruits from very good Ohio schools, Kentucky schools, all over that area there. We were excited, I think when they announced that they were adding Lacrosse, simply because they're in a great area. Being right outside of Cincinnati, they have a huge base to draw from. And then obviously Coach Sean having a background, coaching high school in that area helps as well with building a program. So excited for that. They, as a university at Thomas More, as we had discussed, are in the transitional stages of going Division II. Their administration, from what I was told, is very supportive of lacrosse. Their president loves lacrosse. It's all the great things we love to hear in a school starting lacrosse in full support. However, sadly, we probably won't see them play any NAI lacrosse. It's up in the air right now, obviously, depending on when they fully go D2. So we don't know exactly if we'll see them play an NAI season next year or a D2 season. They will be playing lacrosse next year at Thomas More in Covington, Kentucky, right over the bridge from good old Cincinnati, Ohio. But we don't really know whether that'll be D2 or NAI. The cool thing, though, was that Sean did reassure me that regardless of if they go Division II, they will still be playing against NAI opponents. They'll still, for sure, he said, be picking up games against Cumberland's. He looks forward to continuing to coach against Pete Campbell. So I think that's actually even more exciting to hear that they are very looking forward to playing NAI games. And in that area, it makes all the sense in the world for them to schedule NAI games as well. So whether they go D2 or they play a season in the NAI or whenever that transition happens, wish them nothing but luck at Thomas More. Excited to see what they're doing for Ohio and Midwest lacrosse, and excited to see what they do as a program. And I really look forward to them matching up with Cumberland's. That's like on my radar now as an exciting game to watch. Two Kentucky programs with Kentucky kids, Ohio kids, Midwest kids. Like that's exciting to see those two rosters play each other. So we'll look forward to that. It's not going to be this season, but it will be coming soon. So stay tuned for that. Back to the Westcliff thing, though. This is something that you and I had texted about, which was, it's so sad because like we wanted nothing but success for them, because NAI lacrosse moving out west is huge for the NAI as a whole. It was showing signs of like, hey, something good's going to happen here if it continues to move west. But you and I had talked, like their schedule was so weird because they were coming out here to Iowa and into the Midwest for like a month at a time just to get games in. And they were really weird timed games. The whole schedule was looking strange. Like they were just going to up and leave their campus to come play games for a full month, which, while I think would be awesome as a college lacrosse player, like it'd be very fun. I can't see that being financially smart for the university or athletic department. So I think that had to come into play into what we saw happen. What are your thoughts on their program and what happened kind of?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask you. Kind of wanted to go team by team maybe and just see where you thought like things went wrong, particularly Westcliff and Multnomah. But I think one of the things that I found interesting, and it was kind of my first red flag, was I started doing some homework. One of our people on Twitter sent this to us as well, that they don't do student housing. And I was like, all right, that's a little weird, but I mean, it's California. You figure maybe they get a lot of local guys that can work it out. It's a nice part of California. You figure they got some rich kids, hopefully. So maybe that's how they're doing the financing. And then the next thing was when I saw St. Andrews announce that their game against Westcliff had been canceled. And so when I heard Westcliff was having further issues, I was like, all right, it's in California. It's probably a COVID thing where they cancel a season. It's a COVID thing. But then once I heard about their further troubles, I'm like, all right, this probably has nothing to do with COVID at all. It's just, I don't know if it was a financial issue or what the deal was. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine going to a school and then it being all online, because that's one of the other things I heard is it's 100% online classes. So that's probably why they had some of the most random game time we've ever seen, as we discussed. So it sounds like the students weren't overall happy with the experience, whether it be the online classes, the lack of housing, or just in general. It seems a bit unique situation.
Yeah, I think it's tough. And I think like, this is another thing that we've discussed, and I've discussed with other people as well, is like, what are the ingredients and what's the recipe to starting a first year program successfully, and especially doing so in an area with no NAI lacrosse nearby. Like, their closest opponents probably would have been us here in Iowa. And that's a lot of travel time. That's a lot of expenses. That's flights, that's bus rides, that's hotels, that's meals day after day. Um, and to start a program successfully, you have to have administrative support. You have to have a university behind you buying into the program, but you also have to have an idea of a realistic budget. And it just seems like, I mean, obviously we don't know any of this. Like, we don't know exactly what happened, I guess, or what transpired, but it just seems like when it came down to the season actually going forth, they probably had to make the decision that it wasn't going to be financially smart. And it is weird though, because that's what I've heard too, is online classes, no housing on campus. I've researched their university, and it seems like they have like a home-based campus, but it also seems like most online schools. It was a beautiful campus. Irvine, California is an awesome place. So that part of it was exciting. But I just think, while all of that was exciting and it was easy to overlook what could have been at fault, they were probably getting guys in there just in the fact that they were a program in California and guys could go there and just play lacrosse. And obviously they weren't looking at the factors that might have, failed. And it seems like this probably had to do with finances, because I looked at the rest of their schedules for their sports, and they're all playing in California. They're playing mostly pretty close games, so that's not an issue for them. Whereas you throw lacrosse into the mix, and it's just hard. And it's like, if you're going to start something like that, you need to have 4, 5, 6 teams in a conference that you can really pull it off all at once, instead of just letting one team start for half a season or a preseason and then fold. And the other kind of weird thing too, that when I was looking, they didn't have any athletic fields on campus. They were using, like, it looked to be a community park. And like, while it was a beautiful, California lacrosse field, it was just kind of strange because it looked like a pretty general soccer complex. And so you didn't really have the recipes for a college lacrosse program to start, which is weird. If I were in their shoes, hypothetically, you and I are coaching a team together. We're putting this team together. We're in California. The school's NAI. They're like, let's put a lacrosse team together. The Lax Cat is back. I'm thinking though, like, if we're putting a schedule together in a program, you got to start the first year playing club teams in the area, MCLA teams in the area. Just the first couple of seasons, get your footing playing non-NAI games they'll be low travel cost, that will be good competition to start out, and then build from there. And I think, for example, Mount Vernon Nazarene, they've done a good job at that because they've played a lot of D3 and club games to balance out travel time, costs, all that kind of stuff. That's what a program, in my mind, in the kind of non-traditional area for NAI lacrosse should do to get their footing, to prove themselves, to gain more financial access. Like, those are kind of the things that came to my mind. And we didn't really see that much on their schedule because they were traveling for an all NAI schedule pretty much in the Midwest, which is strange. And I guess we don't really know if we've seen the end of Westcliff lacrosse, like if that's just it, or if they're going to plan a return and do it that way. Who knows? But it's sad. It really is. And I feel for that. I feel for those guys, because it wasn't like it was a 6-7 man roster. Like, there were a lot of guys that have to find a new home to play in the next 2 months. Like, I'd imagine, and from what I've heard, a lot of them are getting out of there pretty quick. And I don't blame them, but it puts those student athletes in a pretty tough spot to switch schools and teams right away. So we'll see where those guys end up. I imagine a few KCAC teams pick them up. I imagine a few Midwest teams do. I could see a few WAC teams picking them up. And I think you'll probably see them start to pop up in rosters here in the next coming weeks if they decide to go that route, which is all that more interesting and difficult for them at the same time.
Yeah, and my final question before we kind of move it along, do you think it's a more viable option for teams to kind of play the club route? Or another thing I've thought about is, when you're kind of slowly building, maybe make it very clear, like, hey, year 1, we're redshirting everybody, having a practice go. And then year 2, we're ramping it up, maybe sign. I mean, if you could sign 15, 20 guys year 1, more power to you. But if you can only sign like 8, like Multnomah, just let them know going into it, like, hey, we're not having a season. We're signing all 8 of y'all. Are y'all cool with redshirting? We're going to sign another 10, 15 of you next year. Year 2, we're fully go.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally, I actually, I love the red shirt option. I think it's brilliant. Clarke started a football team here 4 years ago. Their first season, they redshirted all the guys. They practiced 24/7. They did inter-squad scrimmages. They built out a program before entering collegiate competition. Those guys got stronger on the field. They got more comfortable academically. I actually love that route, and I almost like that route about Division I sports as well, that a lot of your freshmen are redshirting the first year because they're able to settle into a college atmosphere academically and athletically. They're bulking up in the weight room. They're getting stronger. They're getting closer as a team. I think it's great. And I'm obviously going to be playing a 5th year just because of COVID circumstances, getting my master's. And I'm seeing it as a blessing in disguise, but I think about those guys that can go into it knowing that they have that option to build a program. I think it's great. I think the club thing, if you had a big enough roster, would be a good situation. And if you were in an area packed with club teams, but if you're not in an area packed with club teams and you still need to build out a roster, I think having the guys redshirt for a year makes a lot of sense. And those scholarships in the NAI that they're getting, they carry over until they graduate. So it's not like you're on a scholarship timeline per se. Like it's until you graduate, you're signed on. So I agree with you. I think that's a smart way to go about it too. And that's why I'm even more confused with Multnomah, like what's going on there. And we also heard that, Corbin was going to start a men's lacrosse program in Oregon, and that would have made sense to have 2. They've only so far added a women's program. They're still waiting on their men's program. So maybe if they add, then you'd have 2 teams in Oregon. And then you think about like College of Idaho. College of Idaho has a great lacrosse program. They are an NAI lacrosse program, but they only play MCLA teams. So they're in a strange boat as well, that they are NAI, but they only compete in the MCLA and they have a deep roster. So there's another kind of outlier that doesn't make much sense, but has success in what they do.
Yeah, definitely interesting to keep track of it all right now as we kind of learn more day to day. So yesterday we actually had our first game, or I guess scrimmage of the season. I mean, I think Florida Atlantic seemed to count it as a real game. I think Weber counted it as a scrimmage, but so little NAI versus MCLA action. Weber won it 12-4. I actually ran a poll on this one to see kind of what people thought. What were your takes on what people were saying about it?
I think people's takes were probably for the most part well-founded. They were, I think, good takes. I'm pulling up your poll here because I wanted to see where that ended up. I think that's accurate. So your poll, your question was, how do you feel about Weber's win over Florida Atlantic University being an MCLA program? So 165 votes, 12% said impressive win, 49% said decent win but expected, 39% said not impressed. I 100% fall on the decent win but expected category. I think I'm glad that won in the poll because that was 100% where my mind was at. Florida Atlantic is an MCLA program. They traditionally seem to have had pretty good numbers. I can't tell if they played a season last year officially or the last kind of season they had was 2020. They're playing a lot of Florida MCLA teams. They're not really playing any of the big MCLA programs, but they had good results in what they were playing against. So they seem to be a well-rounded MCLA program. And you have to expect that when you put a newer NAI program against a well-rounded MCLA program, that you'd hope it's going to be pretty neck and neck. But I think it was a great win. I do think it was somewhat expected, but I really do think it was a good win. I'm not even in that category that's not impressed. I definitely don't fall there. How about you?
I'm 100% with you on that one. I was in the decent win, but expected. I wouldn't call it an incredible win just because Florida Atlantic's not one of these elite MCLA teams where you're just blown away if they lose to an NAI program or another program of any division. But they're solid, right? They're pretty fairly middle of the pack, MCLA 2 team, I believe, maybe 1. But as you said, pretty good results normally. I'm beating them 12-4. Pretty comfortable win. I mean, you're not putting 20 or 30 on them, but 12-4, fairly in control of the game. And going into it, we kind of knew Weber was going to be a pretty solid team this year. And I think that confirms it. If I had to look at FAU and like, if I put them in the NAI today, I'd probably put them around 15 to 20, somewhere in that range where it's a good program. I don't think they'd be an NAI tournament team, not particularly close, but I mean, they definitely had some talent. And I'm one of my former teammates at Reinhardt plays on the Weber squad. And he said he could kind of compare them to maybe like a 2018, 2019 Montreat, where they had a couple very good players. They just didn't have kind of the depth and supporting cast around them.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And I think, I guess we don't really talk a lot about Weber. Like we do every now and then. And they're still a very new program, but they've had success early compared to a lot of other new programs. I think location's a big thing for them. Then they can draw guys with a field right next to the ocean. That's pretty desirable. But it is. I think that's still a very good win. And I think that's a smart win to have your team go play a competitive team, win by a good margin, and then go into your season on high hopes. You're feeling good. You've seen your team play together. You know what roles guys are going to play. I think scheduling those kind of games are smart. I really do. I mean, I think about us. Like we started out last season playing University or Iowa State, and Iowa State's a pretty decent MCLA program. Good roster. Love playing them. A lot of good friends on the team. It was a close game all around, but we, regardless of losing by a few goals in that game, we played a good MCLA team. We understood what roles everyone was going to play. We felt better as a team going into our schedule. I think that's smart for a lot of teams to do. Like you do that and you realize where guys fall. And like, that's what brings the team together, is understanding where you need to work and where you feel comfortable. And I think that's a brilliant move by Weber.
Yeah, I do too. It'll be interesting I think they're playing Tampa today or tomorrow. So it gets a little bit, by a little bit, I mean, a lot of bit more difficult. But I mean, the good news there is that'll be the best team they play all year, hands down. So, I mean, that'll be a good learning experience as well. I doubt we see a score update coming out of that, but
No.
definitely a good kind of measuring stick, playing
Yeah.
kind of a mid-level MCLA team and then kind of the top D2 team, pretty much a D1 program.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, when you think like Florida lacrosse, like I was even looking at the D2 poll for Florida in that conference, and Tampa's up there at the top. And so again, play the hardest competition you can before the games that count. And so that, again, smart move in my mind. Your guys are getting to say they played against Tampa. That doesn't hurt anything at all. Obviously, Weber's coach has a history with Tampa, so there's an in right there already. And I think again, it only helps to see cross divisional play. I mean, I even think about like just scrolling through, lacrosse Twitter today. Queens, a good D2 program, lost by 2 goals in a very organized scrimmage to Mercer. So there's a D2 team losing by a very close margin to a D1 team, cross divisional play. Weber playing Tampa, cross divisional play. MCLA teams playing NAI teams, cross divisional play. I think all those things are good to start the seasons out, because those results don't matter. And it's not that they don't matter, but they don't count against you. And I think that's a really good move for teams to do that. Well, I love what Weber's doing, and I'm thinking like to an incoming freshman, like that's got to be fun to be like, yeah, that team just they're playing Tampa tomorrow. Like that's pretty sick.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big matchup right there, especially recruiting wise. Moving on to kind of the next one, we have a couple games this week as well. Indiana Tech plays Davenport, which will be pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure they were rivals at one point inside the WAC. Davenport, for those of you who don't know, won the inaugural NAI tournament, and then at Peace, we're going D2 now. And they haven't had quite the success at the D2 level. I looked at their schedule briefly. It looked like, I think they went like 1-7 last year, but it was a bit misleading because I think like 4 or 5 of those losses were to top 15 programs. And once again, they're not losing by 10, 15 goals. They're losing by 4 or 5 goals. So it's like, it's really, I mean, they went 1-7 clearly, but are they more of kind of like, if they played a little bit more realistic schedule, are they kind of a 4-4 team instead of a 1-7 one? So one of the Twitter questions I came up with is kind of what kind of game do you expect this to be? What do you
Yeah.
think this will be?
So this is a good one. Davenport. So when I was on my, sorry for smacking the mic there, guys. When I was on my, recruiting journey prior to freshman year, senior year of high school, a lot of the recruiting trips that I was on and a lot of overnights to NAI schools they were filled with a lot of guys who are currently on the Davenport roster. So I'm familiar with the play of a lot of these guys. Even when I was on a visit at Mercyhurst Northeast, a JUCO school, there were some guys who were on this Davenport roster now. So I'm familiar with them, and a lot of them would have gone the NAI route, I think, if Davenport didn't pop up, just for the Michigan guys in that area. And while I think Davenport's a good team, I don't think they're highly competitive in Division II right now. I think they're kind of mid to low tier. I personally, if I just plan this game out, I think Indiana Tech wins big. I think Davenport has a decent numbered roster. I don't think it even comes close to Indiana Tech. They've only had a few years in Division II with this team, with this foundation. They've been kind of up and down all over the place, lost a lot of key guys. Again, Indiana Tech returns all their guys pretty much from last year, adds a couple important transfers, adds freshmen. They have more numbers than they could possibly imagine. I personally feel that Indiana Tech wins either a big one or a healthy margin. I voted Indiana Tech wins a close one here, but then I started to look at the rosters and think about it, and I'm like, I think Indiana Tech wins by more than just a few. You 135 votes on your poll. 38% said Indiana Tech wins a close one. Right behind that was Indiana Tech wins big at 36%. And then the Davenport wins options were both very low on the votes. I think a lot of people are seeing the writing on the wall that Indiana Tech's probably a more well-rounded team than Davenport.
Yeah, I'd fall in the same category. I ended up going with the Indiana Tech. I voted off my just personal Twitter, but I ended up voting that Indiana Tech would win big as well. I just think that attack unit in particular is going to be too much for the defense of Davenport. It looked like they're having some trouble on that side of the ball last year. So, I mean, you never know recruiting at D2 level, especially from kind of the Michigan Northwest area. I mean, they could get it up and running pretty quick. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I could see something like 17-8 Indiana Tech winning, somewhere in that. I don't think they're going to go out and win by 20, but I could definitely see like 8, 9, 10 goal game.
I'm calling it right now. 12-7 Indiana Tech win. I'm feeling confident. I think 12 goals is a good number for them. But I don't know, your numbers might be more realistic because when that attack unit gets moving, I don't think scoring is going to be an issue. Not even at all. That's just it's gonna flow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even think of the number of games Indiana Tech didn't put up 15 plus last year. It seemed like every time I'm looking 18, 19, 20 goals. So
yeah. Well, I mean, either way though, we have 2 NAI versus D2 games coming up. So that's a cool start to the NAIs.
Yeah, one that's going to be very interesting. Coach Snow over at Coker scrimmaging SCAD to start the season off. So that'll be one that's very interesting. What are your thoughts going into that one?
My thoughts are I had no idea what SCAD was going to look like this year or what they were going to do until suddenly Lax Twitter returned and somebody was posting lacrosse stuff from SCAD. There was a player petting a dog, a few guys on a field, a box of balls. There was signs of some lacrosse going on. And then I also saw one of the ones you retweeted was a picture of all their freshmen. They have quite a few freshmen on the SCAD roster as well. I definitely think Coker wins. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Snow knows what to expect from SCAD as well, and he has a good roster behind him already. So he's not unfamiliar with the opponent, which I think is important there. And I also do just think that we don't really know what's going on with SCAD. We know they're playing a season, we know they have players, but we don't know the fine details of the program right now. And for that reason, I go Coker on them.
Yeah, I go Coker as well. I think it could be a little bit more competitive than we think it will be. I don't think, just personally, from some of the interviews I've seen Snow do, I think if you asked him kind of off record, Would he take the Reinhardt teams he's had the past couple years versus the squad he has now at Coker? I think he'd take the past couple Reinhardt teams just talent wise. And then the only downside to that is I don't think SCAD is particularly deep this year. I was looking at their roster. Looked like they graduated the 3 leading scorers and possibly the faceoff guy as well. So that's something to keep in mind when you think of SCAD.
Yeah, that's a very solid point. And then your last poll here was, let me pull it up here. I'll read it off for the folks listening online who haven't seen it. Reinhardt plays Shorter, Auburn, and LaGrange in the next 7 days. How many do they win? 69% of the 121 votes said they win all 3. Agreed. I think, and I might be off cusp here, but I think the hardest game of those 3 that they'll face is probably going to be Auburn. Auburn's a good MCLA team. They get a lot of D1 drop downs, a lot of D2 drop downs, kids that want to go to a big school and party it up, which is Auburn. But they're a very, very organized MCLA program. They seem to run like a lot of D2 programs do, from what I can tell. They might be in the same boat where they're actually giving kids some type of scholarship money to come play as well, because they have club money as a big school. I think that will be the greatest competition that Reinhardt face. I don't think that they'll lose that game. I think they'll win that game. I don't know what the margin will be, but I definitely think Shorter and LaGrange, Reinhardt definitely wins those 2 by healthy margins.
Yeah, definitely going game by game of what I know of these programs. Shorter lost their head coach last week, so not off to a great start, and that probably wasn't going to be a close one to start with. So Reinhardt takes the W there. LaGrange, new D3 program down here in Georgia. So excited to see what they build. But I think last year was their first year, maybe second. Looked like they're 1-7, 1-8. Not super competitive year one. So I'd say Reinhardt wins that one. And I was looking at Auburn because I think you said a couple days ago they're pretty good. And I know I've seen some of their guys playing in different tournaments here and there, just kind of men's league style. But I didn't really realize how good they were. I mean, if you look at their schedule last year, I only saw 2 games. I guess it got ended early, but they blew out a very decent UGA squad. Then they lost to a very impressive Georgia Tech team, I think, by only 4 goals. So if you're blowing out UGA in the club world and playing very good games against Georgia Tech, like Georgia Tech would be a top 3 NAIA team every year, if not winning the title. So, I mean, if you're hanging with them, you're probably pretty dang good. So that'll be a very interesting one. I'll say Reinhardt's going to win, but would it shock me if Auburn kept it very close or maybe even won it? No, it wouldn't be a complete shock.
Agreed. Definitely. I think those are healthy analyses of what we expect to see. But that's 3 quick games, which are exciting to see how they pan out. And again, games that don't count against an NAIA record either. So smart for a storied program with a new coaching staff to see how they go to start with those 3 games. That's intelligent to start things out, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Any questions that you saw pop up this week? Anyone ask? Very interesting.
I don't think that I got anything. I know you put out the tweet here. I'll pull it up just to make sure we are not missing anything. I mean, I will say Kcac dropped their 2 coaches preseason polls for men's and women's. We can address the men's one. And I really do think the Kcac preseason poll falls exactly where we expected it to. I don't think there's really any surprises there. Number 1 on the poll, Columbia. Number 2, St. Ambrose. Number 3, Benedictine. Number 4, William Penn. I think that you and I would have set that up probably about the exact same. I am a little surprised that William Penn didn't get any first place votes. That was a little bit unusual to me, but then again, Benedictine only got 1, with the majority coming in for Columbia and Ambrose. So I think that top 4 makes all the sense. And to be honest with you, I think, of the 11 teams in the Kcac and how this panned out, Clarke included, I think this looks like a smart analysis of where the conference is right now. So I was happy to see a healthy preseason poll that made sense.
Yeah, it made me too. I think the only thing I would have probably flipped is William Penn and Benedictine. I'm trying to remember can you read the bottom half real quick of that too?
Yeah. So we go down, following William Penn. This is where it was a little bit interesting to me. Number 5, Ottawa. Number 6, Missouri Baptist. I think Ottawa and Missouri Baptist are about neck and neck. I might take the Missouri Baptist in 5, Ottawa at 6. I don't know though, because I think they really are pretty equal right now. Missouri Baptist picks up a few pretty key transfers in this offseason, so that will impact their game. Their numbers don't seem to be too deep. Ottawa seems to be deeper, so that might make sense. 7, Midland, 8, us at Clarke, 9, Missouri Valley, 10, St. Mary, and 11, Morningside. And I think that's also healthy because Clarke and Midland, I think we're at about the same spot. I think our programs are pretty matched. So you look at 7 and 8, I think Midland and Clarke are pretty matched. 5 and 6, Ottawa, Missouri Baptist are pretty matched. Those two make sense. Then you have Missouri Valley, St. Mary, and Morningside. And I think there's something interesting to be seen with the St. Mary being put at 10. I think that's the lowest they've ever been in the poll. Same with Missouri Valley as well, actually. St. Mary, we had looked at the roster a few weeks ago and saw that they had like 18 guys or something, like they were going to be in decent area. And then somebody had told me recently that they were only at 10 guys and that roster was not correct online. So I'm curious if the coaches having the full information voted St. Mary at 10 based off of that 10-man roster compared to the 18-man roster we had seen online. So I think there's some discrepancies there that may have affected their preseason voting. Again, the coaches do have a lot more information than we do as far as the interconference stuff goes. So I feel like that's probably pretty accurate. Morningside, again, all the kudos to them for building a program in Sioux City, Iowa. They're continuing to build, but I do think that this is a pretty accurate preseason poll.
Yeah, I would agree with that for the most part as well. Moving along, one interesting question someone asked me, from our perspective, having played teams in different conferences, what do you think the different playing styles of each conference are?
I think they changed. I think they've changed drastically in the past 3 years. From when I came in as a freshman to now, or even last season, they look very different based on guys transferring to different places. I think the WAC, I think they always play very physical and very detailed play. I feel like the WAC in my mind is technical and physical. So they have their things, they know what they're doing, and they're also going to play hard. They're going to ride you. They're going to slap check you. Like they know what they're doing. I think the Kcac, I think is very physical. I think at times it can be sloppier physicality because your officials are also coming from the Midwest. So you're looking at a different style in the high school game as well. So I would say Kcac is so big now that it ranges so drastically based on where your biggest recruiting base is for kids. I think like the Benedictines and the Columbias and the St. Ambrose, they have been around for so long that they kind of have a rhythm and style of their own, where the rest of our conference, I think, is hard-nosed physical play. You have a lot of guys who are playing lacrosse after playing football seasons. So you're looking at kind of football players also in the lacrosse mix. And then, I can't even speak to your conference because I can't tell you the last time I played a team. I mean, I guess just from watching I would say it's probably somewhat similar to the WAC. But I guess Southern lacrosse kind of has its own style as well.
Yeah, the one difference I would probably say is it seems a little bit slower, I would say. It seems like the WAC at times can get a little bit run and gun.
True that.
Just kind of an AAC perspective from what I see, like when I watch Indiana Tech, Donna, teams like that. Especially back in the day when there was no shot clock. Like some of the AAC teams are moving it real slow. It's definitely picked up some, but I'd say I tend to like the defenses a little bit more down here. I'd say high level defensive play, high IQ offense, but definitely a little bit more methodical than other conferences.
I would agree. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that question up because I just saw that one. I think that's a good question. And I think it's like I just feel like it's so dependent upon where you're getting guys. I even think of Kaiser historically getting a lot of Canadian guys. And while they may move the game a little bit slower, like you said, methodical, like they're a lot of box guys. They're looking for the next cut. They're looking for the next guy to feed or the pick down. So I think it's a lot more of a methodical game and a much more strategic game for that matter as well. I should say that it's planned out like that. That's a great question that came in, because there's such a different style from conference to conference. And that's what makes the cross conference plays so fun, is that you're seeing guys that for the most part wouldn't have played each other in high school, wouldn't have even seen each other in tournaments a lot of the time, which I think makes that even more exciting, kind of. And then I guess we can, do you want to address the big Kcac changing names news?
Yeah, so this is one thing that I forgot about earlier that we'd been discussing the past couple of days. It appears, and I don't think it's 100% confirmed, but I've heard from multiple credible sources that the Heart of America, did I say that right? Heart of America Conference will finally be kind of taking over instead of the KCAC out west. I think that's scheduled to take place in 2023. I don't think it's 100% official yet, so don't quote me on that. What do you think that'll mean going forward? Like, will it be just pretty much a logo change, or what are we looking at here?
Yeah, so I can confirm it is happening. I've heard from in-conference sources recently that that's going to happen. And I also heard that it would be 2023. So from what I'm hearing is it would go into effect this coming fall. So as soon as guys hit campus after this season, that it'll be a Heart of America. The only curiosity I have in this happening is right now it's about a split in the KCAC. Like, we're the only here at Clarke, we're the only KCAC team on campus. The rest of the campus is Heart of America. Heart of America is a very big, powerful conference. They're very closely connected to the NAI in their leadership and their roles. They've been around for years and years and years. They're really big in football, and they have great resources, great media, great technology. It's huge because it will push Midwest lacrosse that much further, I would say, with the Heart of America. They listen to their athletes really, really well. I've appreciated that about being on a campus that's Heart of America. But the big question is, with like half the teams now, in the KCAC being Heart of America schools and half being actual KCAC schools, I wonder if two conferences are going to happen. It would probably be good for the game to have two conferences instead of one big one. The thing, like, you got to think about, like, Morningside is technically a GPAC school. They're not KCAC or Heart. William Penn is a Heart of America school. They're with Clarke and everything else. Ottawa is a KCAC school, from my understanding. So you're kind of spread out right now on where these teams are actually located. So, like, for us at Clarke, for example, we're on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. We're on the very far side of Iowa. So we would align much better with Heart of America teams based on travel, whereas Ottawa would align much better with KCAC teams based on travel. So personally, what I see happening is I think two more teams add men's lacrosse this offseason, and I think we see two conferences emerge. I have a very good feeling, and I don't know any information about this, but I have a very good feeling that Culver Stockton adds men's lacrosse. They already have a women's program. They have the facilities to do so. They would be a Heart of America team, from my understanding. But I think two more programs are added and two conferences emerge. What are you thinking?
That's kind of, I don't know how I feel about the two conference idea. Part of me loves it, and then part of me is like, wow, this could be an absolute disaster where everybody has no idea what's going on. And it just kind of goes down to one of those last minute decisions where we see how it plays out. I don't know. Like, as much as I don't want to say it's just going to be a different logo, that might honestly be the best thing, at least year one.
For year one, yeah.
Yeah, just kind of smooth over the transition phase, not make too many wholesale changes. One other thing is, I think there's a school, Baker, maybe. Does that sound about right? I think
they're a football powerhouse.
I think I've heard rumors about them adding as well. I'm not sure what state they're in, so
Kansas.
That could be here too, adding.
Yeah, Baker is a full-time Heart of America member as well. To be honest, the two schools that I really want to see lacrosse added at are Baker and Central Methodist in Missouri. Central Methodist is killer at every sport. They get athletes from everywhere. They're a big campus and big enrollment. So the two schools I would love to see lacrosse at, again, Baker and Central Methodist. And so I think I could see two conferences happening if we got up to 14 teams. Right now we're at 11. If you got up to 14 and you could have 2 conferences of 7, I think it would be doable. I think you're right. With 11 teams, having 2 conferences would be a little tricky.
Yeah, just 6 and 5 wouldn't be ideal number wise, but 7 or 8 each would be pretty dang doable. One other thing I want to mention before we go, it looks like the coaches poll, not for national rankings, but for every conference, should be out tomorrow at some point. I'm assuming around 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's usually when it is, more or less. Are we expecting any shockers in the WAC or AAC?
I think Concordia will fall pretty high, probably higher than people expect in the WAC. Obviously, I think Indiana Tech's number 1. Aquinas, we don't really know what's going on there. AAC, Reinhardt's 100% number 1. I don't know. I guess Kaiser at 2, maybe. I could see that. That's kind of a maybe that's like a tie situation as well.
I'm really interested to see the top 3 in the AAC. I think Reinhardt won. Cumberland's Kaiser, kind of a toss-up for 2 and 3. Either way, I wouldn't really be mad at it. The WAC's the one I really want to see kind of where, what do you do with Aquinas, Lords, Concordia? I mean, that kind of, you could see those 3 in any order. I think I probably go Aquinas at 2, but I mean, you could see them at 4 pretty easily. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Madonna. Is Madonna kind of a top 5 still, or with the new coach, are they more around 7? And then Lawrence Tech being back. I mean, we're used to seeing Lawrence Tech. If they're not first, they're second or third up there. So are they going to be at the bottom, somewhere in the middle? That's what I'm kind of interested in.
True. Well, I guess we'll have more information by next week's show. We'll have preseason polls all the way out. We'll probably have the preseason players of the year for each conference out, I would expect, by that point. And we'll have a lot more games done and a whole lot more information. So that's looking forward to that.
Yep. Can't wait to be back next week.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Enjoy some lacrosse in the this coming week, and we'll see you back, I guess, next Monday.
See you then.